My name is Aida and I am from Metrics DAO team. I'm really excited to be bringing you this Axelar webinar. We are going to start in a minute, so get yourself comfortable and we will start very soon. Okay, it's time to kick this off. And hello to everyone who is already here, who is already watching. Really excited to have you with us. Right. So, as always, before we kick off these webinars, we like to give also introduction to the organizer of this webinar, which is Metrics Down. So, who are we at Metrics DAO? So we are a community first and foremost, which connects Web3 data analysts who provide Web3 organizations with on-demand data insights and tooling. So we at the moment have about 5,000 people in our community, and we partner with dozens of organizations in the Web3 space that need their data analytics to be done. And we train our analysts to go out there and provide these analytics. So we have a bunch of analytics challenges available for anyone who already has or possesses the Web3 analytics skills. So essentially, you can go ahead and complete those challenges. They are open and you can even earn if you do these challenges well. In addition to our analytics challenges, we also provide a bunch of training and educational opportunities for anyone who is interested in learning how to become a Web3 data analyst or gain additional understanding of the Web3 space. So at the moment, we run a bunch of different courses on various ecosystems like Algorand, Ethereum, Near, etc. And we'll soon be launching more courses. So keep up to date with what we're doing on our Discord server and Twitter so that you know when the next courses are launching. Also, we have a bunch of exciting analytics specific programs that are both live or cohort based as well as asynchronous. So you can actually join those programs. And we will be as well posting when the next cohorts are starting in our channels. Right. So enough about metrics DAO. If you do have any questions, do drop them in the chat. But let's jump into our topic, which is Axelar. However, I would like to start with a bit of a broader context of what um, really is a huge dialogue in the current Web3 world, which is the dialogue of is the future cross chain or multi chain. We've had different opinion leaders saying different things about the future of how these different chains are going to communicate because we know that ultimately interoperability is really important in the Web3 space. And to bring the Web3 space to the masses, we do need to ensure that these blockchains can somehow work or communicate together. So, what it means a multi chain blockchain and what it means a cross chain protocol. So, essentially, multi chain refers to a project using multiple chains that are designed to communicate with one another. Whilst with cross chain, essentially it enables interoperability between totally unrelated blockchain ecosystems. So Axelar believes that the future is going to be cross-chain, which means that there's not going to be any more need to maintain multiple private identities, or like in this case we can call them accounts or wallets, and no more risky bridges with bad UX. So essentially, Axelar is focusing on building that cross-chain future and has implemented a bunch of exciting solutions in order to make that happen, that we are going to be looking into in a moment. So, before we look into these specific solutions that Axelar has implemented in to actually make this cross-chain future happen, we can also look into a little bit more about the current problem of what happens if the blockchains cannot communicate and work well together, what it means for the users and builders. So at the moment, we see that most of the blockchains are kind of be called like walled gardens, which essentially means that apps built on one chain typically lack access to data or services on another. Also, we see that generally different blockchains tend to use different programming languages. So it can be very complicated to actually for a developer to be building projects that require multiple chains, and it can cause into really complex infrastructure solutions like bridges or oracles to be utilized. And also at the moment, we see a lot of the times these different builders, these developers are working in silos that are building on different ecosystems, and maybe are even avoiding kind of communicating between the different blockchains and chains due to the complexity of this communication. So the CEO of Axelar, Sergey Gorbunov, um, estimates that cross-chain developers spend 70% of their time prepping their code to deploy on new chains versus actually coding the application logic. So what Axelar is saying is that hey, like the developers have to spend incredible amounts of time and go through overwhelming complexities in order to be building on these different chains. And each time a developer deploys on a new chain, they need to run through a lengthy setup process and retool their code to ensure that they can adjust the different quirks that are required by every different blockchain that they might choose to build on, as well as to connect different blockchains that speak different languages. You have to have a different set of requirements that you're optimizing for, which again causes a lot of time and complexity. So kind of see that at the moment when we're looking into the market, that there are not so many good options for developers to enable this interoperability, um, and we kind of see a lack of just easy one-click solutions to really utilize these cross-chain capabilities. So we have seen some blockchains like Cosmos or Polkadot being heavily focused on interoperability, but they have been doing so largely for their own ecosystems. We have seen Cosmos implementing inter um, kind of commun- inter-blockchain communication protocols for their own ecosystem, since kind of Cosmos is the blockchain of blockchains and connects different blockchains. However, these technologies are largely only kind of easy and relevant to the Cosmos ecosystem itself. So these protocols are hard to scale across other ecosystems with very different consensus and languages. Right. So now Axelar comes in to solve this and to ensure that, hey, we now can actually have a good and efficient asset mobility and information exchanges across previously segmented blockchain networks so that now we can actually create a solution for a cross-chain future that benefits both developers, users, and ecosystem as a whole. So essentially, it's a communication network that connects different blockchains with different ecosystems, with different consensus mechanism, or even different smart contract languages. And it has this decentralized network that it's built upon. It can validate and process messages across different blockchains in a secure way. So it essentially built this infrastructure that enables decentralized application users to interact with any asset or application on any chain with just one click. So the network is secured using proof of stake consensus, and messages are routed and translated using permissionless protocols. So Axelar is a layer one blockchain, uh, using proof of stake consensus mechanism to permissionlessly validate the transactions. We have seen some solutions popping up in the market, that we're trying to address similar issues. However, a lot of them have not been decentralized and permissionless. So Axelar as well tries to ensure that we actually are following the blockchain principles of permissionlessness here. So it also kind of says that it makes it easy to just plug and play any chain. So if you're using its stack, you can just do that simply and without needing to adjust to kind of the new intequencies of deploying on the different chains. So it enables connections to new ecosystems in a streamlined and decentralized way, so that now developers can focus on building applications instead of focusing on learning, adjusting to the requirements of all each of the new technology that they might decide to utilize. Axelar has created an analogy for itself, uh, which is a Web2 analogy, actually. And it's also described itself as Stripe for Web3. So we kind of see the Stripe technology as being a one-stop shop for Web2 developers to bake virtually any banking institutions into their applications. So what Axler does here is aims to help Web3 developers to integrate seamlessly across different chains. Mhm. So when we look into the overview of Axelar, we see that the company was launched in 2020, and some of the kind of key offerings or technologies that it has implemented in the market are cross-chain gateway protocol, cross-chain transfer protocol, APIs, and SDK, as well as a bridge app and satellite money. So it has this general message passing protocol that supports any payload cross chain going beyond bridge assets with function calls and arbitrary data. And in 2022, it actually closed its Series B by financing with a 1 billion valuation and launched its EXL token in September. So we can see that Axelar is actually still a very new company and has recently closed its valuation, recently closed its round in the bear market, and also recently launched its token. So it's a very hot new application in the Web3 space that is growing in a very very rapid speeds, and it's and there is a lot of people in the space at the moment that are incredibly excited about where it's going to go, because we are just early. ultimately in the Web3 space, but also for Axelar. So there's a lot of interesting things that Axelar is promised to be bringing to this space. So essentially, when we look into kind of the end goal of the what this means for these Axelar technologies to be implemented, is that the end goal here is to empower developers to build on the best platform for their needs and enable users to interact with all of these platforms with just one click experience. So essentially, it means that any asset, any application you see, any blockchain is on, you should be able to go and click from one wallet and interact with those applications and assets. So no need to use multiple wallets or multiple accounts anymore. We can just do it simply from one wallet using Axelar technology. So essentially, um, here we also see that it enables a much faster transaction fees, sort of much faster transaction speeds and much cheaper transaction fees, since now we no longer have to pay multiple gas fees. So that's both benefits developers and users, because now maybe you have interacted yourself uh, where you had to kind of bridge and convert multiple tokens and use different networks. And in this process, you might have had to not only spend a lot of time figuring out on how to do that, but also you had to um, y- implement various steps and pay fees in each of those steps. So now Axelar removes those different steps and makes it simple, fast, and cheap to execute transactions. So to kind of summarize here is that Axelar makes it easy for blockchain developers to plug in and communicate with other chains. It provides decentralized application developers with cross-chain composability and allows users to interact seamlessly with applications across multiple ecosystems. So, if we look into the technology stack that has been kind of implemented here by Axelar, is that essentially here as an application builder, you can go and deploy your contract on Ethereum, on Avalanche, on Cosmos, like anywhere really you want, and from there it supports a bunch of APIs and protocols that allow your applications to be multi-chain enabled and go cross-chain. So this means that from an application, you can make a call to an API, which is typically hosted by a gateway, which is then a smart contract that lives on the platform where your application resides. So you can look into gateway as a router that allows you to talk with other ecosystems. So you can post messages to it and read from it. And once your application makes a request to this gateway, and there is kind of underneath this Axelar network, which will ensure that this request is processed securely. Right. So some of the use cases when what we see Axelar being implemented for. So Axelar, even though being a new technology, has already been implemented by various projects in the space. And kind of the initial use cases are focused on asset transfers. And if you have assets on a Cosmos chain, essentially, and if you wish to move it over to Ethereum to use on a dApp, actually enables you to move this asset in a RAF fashion across networks so that you can use it on Ethereum. And in the future, we are going to see actually more kind of if you need a set of data from Polkadot or Ethereum dApps, the Axelar stack will allow you to pull this information from Polkadot blockchain and seamlessly use it on Ethereum. So if you look into more specific use cases or more specific that have partnered with Axelar, is Figment, which is kind of a key kind of staking protocol in Web3, and they have been a supporter and test validator since early October, and the Figment's mission is to build internet by increasing use of the next generation of proof of stake blockchains. So for Figment, it's really things like Axelar are really important, giving people greater access to data and assets across different blockchain ecosystems. Since Figment is working with various assets from various ecosystems. Another one which has been actively working, which Axelar is Moonbeam, and essentially it's a cross-chain connected smart contract platform that Moonbeam is, and essentially this integration of Axelar helps Moonbeam connect with the Polkadot ecosystem. So this means that users will now be able to move assets from external Axelar connected chains to Moonbeam to use across network dApps. So through the Axelar's universal cross-chain communication gateway, applications on the Moonbeam network will be able to compose with applications on Ethereum, Terra, and other chains. Right. Another big partnership that has been implemented by Axelar is with Circle. And here, with Circle together, they are planning to enable kind of a paradigm shift of um, um, how composable USDC are flowing natively cross chain. So essentially, um, Circle is kind of the key behind the stablecoin USDC, and essentially, um, through partnering with Axelar, they can enable composable liquidity with their stablecoin USDC. So essentially, they utilized these important technologies that Axelar has developed, like digital message passing, to support Circle's cross-chain transfer protocol. Um, so essentially, what this will mean for the users is that through this integration, users will now be able to move and swap across multiple blockchains using USDC, transacting in a single click without wrapping their assets. And for developers, this means that they can now seamlessly integrate cross-chain native USDCs into their dApps. So it is a huge shift and impact that this partnership will have to the the way this stablecoin USDC is currently used, and it's a great example of kind of enabling Axlar's vision. And we can see here it working in practice with Circle. Also, Prime Protocol has recently um, established a partnership with Axelar. And what he's saying here is that the current DeFi market has multiple borrowing and lending platforms where users can deposit supported tokens to borrow other assets. However, most platforms only allow users to lend and borrow within the same blockchain ecosystem. Cross-chain DeFi enables borrowing and lending with deposits in any token and loans in any token. This flexibility enables users to access liquidity in the token of their choice, making DeFi more accessible and reducing barriers to entry. So, Prime Protocol is an example of a lending protocol that uses Axelar's interchain infrastructure to support this use case. So, we can see that Axelar is being heavily implemented in the decentralized finance landscape of Web3, and that has a potential to heavily disrupt the way we currently exchange and use and transfer different assets across chains. Mhm. So one of the key technologies that Axelar has created is called message passing, which essentially empowers developers building on the source chain to transfer any payload securely across chain. So essentially here, any function refers to functions on the application and protocol layer, allowing for a wide range of development possibilities. So, like if you look from the higher level here, a function is called from the source chain. The call is verified through Axelar's proof of stake network and then executed via a gateway. So, the way currently the transactions are working, I'm not going to go too much into detail here, but there are two layers. There's the core infrastructure layer, and then there's the application development layer. So the core infrastructure layer is actually maintained by the validators who are executing the transactions, and the application layer, development layer, essentially the layer that will have these different APIs and SDKs that are utilized by developers. And here, the developers can lock, unlock, transfer crypto assets across chains or execute cross chain application triggers. So, if you look a bit more into the transaction flow and how the transactions are currently operating, so we see there is a seven-step process here, from user initiating a cross chain transaction request, um, to this request going through Axelar gateway, and its cross chain gateway protocol. Then it's being kind of validated through different nodes that are on in the network, and then kind of finally executing the result to the user. So there the different steps outlined here, but we'll not go into them in depth right now. And essentially, Axelar has a permissionless governance system. So essentially, it's actually built on Cosmos SDK. So it means that Kepler wallet, which is the main wallet behind the Cosmos ecosystem, is used to access the governance. So the token holders of Axelar token have the ability to use their tokens to vote on the changes of the network. So here, Axelar is going to be improved and what changes will be made to this network. So it uses a quadratic funding mechanism, which means that one token is one vote. So which means that a validator's voting power would equal the root square of the validator's total stake. So if a validator A has a total of 4 tokens, then the voting power would equal 2 votes. So essentially, also as it is also permissionless, there is a set of validators as we saw that run their proof of stake consensus protocol and kind of finalizing these cross-chain messages. So we saw that Axelar has launched its own token back in September. So let's look into quickly what are the use cases at the moment for this token. So first, it's used as a proof of stake governance token to execute a quadratic um, the governance model they're using. Also, users delegate their stake to validators who participate in consensus on their behalf. And for validators, through this token, they can earn rewards for participating in the consensus and take a commission from these rewards, and then this is distributed to the delegators. So, if we look into the ecosystem, there are various decentralized applications that have implemented XLR. So we see there's applications in the wallet, infrastructure, payments, NFT, gaming, and DeFi space. If you want to have a deeper look in which projects have already implemented Axelar or planning to implement Axelar. In the future, you can just head over to Axelar Network slash ecosystem and you can see the different applications that are currently out there. But we see a bunch of leading DeFi solutions like PancakeSwap, Sushi, or Ledger have implemented um, the Axelar technology or about to implement Axelar technology for various purposes to enable cross-chain asset transfers. So who's behind Axelar? So Axelar Foundation is really the key behind leading the development of the network. And essentially, it nurtures the development of scalable, permissionless, and open cross-chain communication network protocols and tools. So at the moment, it actually is connected with 32 different chains, including some of the leading chains such as Ethereum, Polygon, or Avalanche. And it has, at the moment, processed over 86 million in asset transfers over just the last 30 days. And this is projected to heavily increase in the future. So this is the last slide of Axelar. So we're about to finish, and thank you so much for everyone sticking here so far. So the last thing that I wanted to showcase to you here is that Axelar is very open to new projects building in the ecosystem and has just announced its $60 million ecosystem funding program. So essentially, it is designed to nurture a pipeline of developers building Web3 products that are better than anything on the centralized web. Now, that's very broad, but essentially, it funds projects that whether solve global problems that the centralized internet cannot address, safeguard digital sovereignty, security, and privacy, and onboard masses easily without unnecessary friction between specific blockchains or tokens. Also, this program will establish a connection between investors who share this vision and the flow of new developers building interchain apps that use Axelar's infrastructure to make it a reality. So, for this, investors will get early exposure to projects. For developers, this program is an opportunity to connect with active Web3 investors who share their vision and goals. Right. So that was everything about Axelar. If you do have any questions about metric style or Axelar, feel free to drop them in the education chat in our Discord server. And I would really encourage you to join the Discord server. We have a very active community of 5,000 people there. They're kind of talking about Web3 and analytics. We have, everyone who is just starting in the Web3 and analytics space to people that are kind of been working for years in the Web3 analytics world. So it's a great way to connect with others and ask for support or share your experiences. So we really kind of encourage you to as well check out our different courses that we have currently available if you haven't already, and also participate in our analytics challenges if you already have the Web3 analytics skill set. Other than that, that's it. So thank you everyone for attending the webinar today, and I hope that you are going to have a lovely day or evening. So thank you everyone, and we'll see you in the next webinar. Bye bye.